Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today is part 2 of the video I wanted to cover, carry on from yesterday, where yesterday I was talking about the Big Five personality model and how it was being used in various ways by Cambridge Analytica to inform their shady dealings. And now today I want to talk about Cambridge Analytica itself, the events that are going on around them, and some of the other stuff that's come forward, as well as some of the other things that have been pitched that are kind of unclear at the moment. So first off, who is Cambridge Analytica? They're a company that uses psychological profiling to target individuals for the purposes of political campaigns or media campaigns, things like that. And the reason why they have recently been in the news is that they have been kind of blocked from using Facebook to gather data. They have been linked to all manner of different campaigns recently that seem to have sprung up. And then on top of that, Channel 4 in the UK did a kind of undercover recording operation, bit of investigative journalism, which I can credit them for, to actually go and find out what these guys were offering. And some of it was rather disturbing because, as I said yesterday, if you've already got this data set that you can profile people with, and then you can go and see kind of how best to target each one with certain specific types of information, and you can gather information from not just one client, one person that has agreed to have their information gathered, but then as part of their information you can gather the information of all the people in their social network, which is how, at the very least, according to one of their ex-research directors, was I think somewhere in the region of about 240 million Americans in regards to one specific case. So you've got this company who are using psychological profiling in ways that may very well be in breach of various forms of data protection, in particular GDPR and some of the other data protection stuff in and around both Europe and America, as well as breaching other laws and things as well along the way. For instance, the potential sharing of information between super PACs and between candidates, which, as far as I've been made aware, is illegal within the United States as well. So potentially they're in breach of an awfully large number of these various things. But then we get to what they have been talking about in regards to what they've been doing with this information. And so not only is it targeted ads and things like that that take advantage of the power of suggestion over certain elements of people's personalities that they have been able to discover through use of Big Five, the Big Five personality model, plus their own analysis and their own information gathering to one extent or another. Then we get into some of the stuff that has been highlighted by Channel 4 in the meetings that they had with him, as well as now by the Information Commissioner Elizabeth Denham, who has recently been criticising Cambridge Analytica for being uncooperative with her investigation into them, and in regards to the various situations that have sprung up from that, including the warrant that they are currently, at the time of recording, currently trying to get a hold of, which has been apparently delayed somewhat. The last 3 hours ago there was a news story that came out that said that they were still waiting on it, so that they can't just get in, which of course, when you've had Cambridge Analytica talking to the individuals in their various in the Channel 4's recordings, saying that they aren't concerned about it, that they have emails that auto delete, that they are that they set up kind of new companies, new new financial entities to deal with the various situations on behalf of the company overall, so that it can't be traced back to Cambridge, it can't be traced back to the people who they are serving as clients. Giving them this extra time seems dangerous, and it's a case of, as I described, I feel the way that they have been using this data has been kind of one step behind subliminal messaging and a half step or so away from just straight up hypnotizing and power suggestion stuff over people. You know, it's where people have been saying this is a hijacking of democracy. I'm kind of inclined to agree, and now I'm going to tell you guys why, and then I want to get back into what I feel needs to be dug up and what I feel needs to be worked around with these individuals, and then what needs to happen to them afterwards. But why I say that it's a hijacking of democracy is, as we saw with as we've seen with some of the stuff I've talked about in regards to manipulation, some of the stuff that I highlighted from Derren Brown's show on Netflix, The Push. In that show, and with all of the various theories that align with the content that were used in that show, he was able to get 3 of the 4 people that he ran through his experiment, through his scenario, to essentially kill someone at the end of the night. Now, that's a big thing. Compare the difference between that and once every 4 years or so putting a little cross in a box. Big difference in terms of effort and stress, right? Like, they might care about who they're voting for, they might be very into their politics, but the actual act of voting for that person isn't a difficult one. The power of suggestion there allows for an awful lot of influence because it's such a small and simple task. So getting people on board, influencing them to do that kind of thing, just due to the scale of the task, is quite easy, you know, all told. But then making sure that you've got other information that you can utilize so that if things go wrong, if things start to swing the wrong way, if there were things that you didn't kind of take into account, having the huge amount of data, the absolutely vast amount of information that Cambridge Analytica had, is firstly already useful. But then the next thing that stands out is where Cambridge Analytica in their video from Channel 4, which granted had been edited down to suit the episode in terms of, or the program in terms of time, so we do not see the entirety of the tape. One thing I would love for Channel 4 to do would be to release the unedited entirety of all of the footage. Obviously edit out their man's face and stuff, but other than that, no cuts, no nothing, just everything that's said between them. Just because that way Channel 4 couldn't be targeted by the guys at Cambridge Analytica, their CEO in particular, turning around and going, no, you've edited it, you've taken us out of context. No, okay, the media does that a lot. The media does take people out of context a fair amount these days to suit their agendas. In which case, Channel 4 release the footage, release the entire thing, uncut and edited. The only thing you've done is smudge your actor's face. That's it. Other than that, leave the rest running. Yeah, just leave it running. Let us see the whole thing, because then you're above reproach. You can't, you know, it's not, oh, they've cut that out of context and whatever else. It's, well, here's the whole piece of footage. There you go. Whether or not they're not doing that because the footage has been asked for as part of the investigation by the UK government into Cambridge Analytica, I don't know. They have already turned Facebook away from Cambridge Analytica for the time being, so that Facebook's investigations and its audit doesn't interfere with the investigation that our government is conducting. But what do I feel needs to be pulled up? Firstly, if there's any evidence that the Facebook data and the other data sets that have supposedly been deleted, if they haven't been deleted at all, if there's still evidence of them kicking around, then that's huge breach. And as if it wasn't a breach beforehand, that's a huge breach, because they also told Facebook that, you know, they had done it. Then we need to find out what they have in terms of records, in terms of payments and things like that in regards to the Trump campaign, how much they influenced that, what work they did for them, but also, arguably more prominently, considering it happened in this country, is the dealings that they had with Leave.eu, or the Leave campaign, Leave.eu something, the website, and the group that there was the UKIP-led Leave initiative, and that needs to be investigated because there was a big swing. You know, all the polls, all the projections were suggesting that it wouldn't go the way that it did, and that's become a pattern recently. And a common factor seems to be that this group, this company, worked on both of these events. In which case, the information that they have on these various things, considering that there have been continuous kind of flip-flops on the part of their kind of statements as a company in regards to whether or not they were associated with certain people, whether or not they actually bragged about things. They have straight up just lied about some things, and a lot of their defense seems to be, oh, but other people do it. It's like, just because other people do it, or just because it has been done by other people, firstly, if that's the case, tell us who. We'll go and investigate them too. But also, if that's the case, and it doesn't turn out that there are other people that are doing it, and that's just the excuse you're making, it still doesn't make it right. You still need to be held accountable for the things that you've said and done, especially when the things that you are saying and doing infringe on people's personal agency. You know, someone who manipulates someone else into doing something, you know, there is a personal responsibility on the part of the person being manipulated, but at times they're being held hostage, and in ways that they don't even realise. Their internal values and beliefs are being held hostage rather than something material. And those things are harder for people to escape because you can't run away from them. You can't avoid them like you could avoid a physical punch, because it's all internal. It's the emotional abuse, the emotional manipulation, the harm being done in that way. And as was highlighted by some of the comments that were made by Alexander Nix, their chief executive, in the videos recorded by Channel 4, one of the things that he said was, it sounds a dreadful thing to say, but these are things that don't necessarily need to be true as long as they're believed, speaking in regards to the things that they have put out, the information that they put out on behalf of clients, or some of the recording, entrapment, blackmail, honeypots, bribery, and other such, honeytraps rather, honeypots would be a Winnie the Pooh thing, and bribery and so on and so forth that is mentioned, which he then says later on was to try and weed out whether or not this person was a bad actor and whether or not they would actually even work with them. But this was the 4th or 5th meeting, and so from what we see and hear in the footage that is available, and from the commentary provided, it suggests that this was part of the focus of the individual posing it as a client all along. And so the fact that continued meetings happened again and again and again each time suggests that actually this is par for the course. You know, there is an inconsistency in the claims of Cambridge Analytica around this and not. And we know that fake news has been a problem. We know that there are all manner of other issues. And the fact that this is from the words of the mouth, or from words from the mouth rather, of the individual who basically is in charge of the entire company, it highlights just what this company has been doing. So not only have they been profiling people in regards to the way that then they have been running the campaigns, these social media campaigns, including attack ads, including fake news, including all kinds of other bits and pieces, and highlighting of incrimination on the part of people who haven't paid them, essentially. And putting all of that information across to people in a way that they either can't ignore or that it's very hard to ignore. It's troubling. And part of it, to me, if it does turn out that they end up being as involved with the Leave campaign as they have suggested that they have been, it may very well explain why the following morning, only the following morning after the referendum vote in this country over the EU, was there the spike in people even researching and Googling and finding out what the EU was and what Brexit actually meant. You know, it's one of those things whereby if this was used to target people's emotions, to suppress their rationality, to take advantage of those things and push suggestion, then, you know, it leaves a lot in question considering how things went. And then in the follow-up, what do I feel should happen to these people if various forms of this evidence are found? Well, firstly, they need to be pulled up on every possible charge. All of the data protection charges, all of the various charges around their seemingly illegal actions in regards to bribery and kind of entrapping people. They need to be held accountable for all of it. They need to be kind of shat on from a very great height over all of this, because we can't have people taking advantage of others like this. I feel like maybe some additional legislation around advertising and things like that would be useful, or around data gathering through bits and pieces like social media and like apps, to ensure that the kind of profiling and the kind of data being accrued is either, if it is going to happen, because I have no issue with it happening in the first place as a profiler myself, but if it is going to happen, then it needs to be very well protected, very well regulated, and if it's not going to happen, then there need to be protections in place for those people, for the general public, to ensure that it doesn't happen to any meaningful extent, so that people can profile and target in the same way. And that's in part what GDPR is doing in regards to the EU, where it's the General Data Protection Regulations, where they are trying to protect all data and data handling within the EU, followed by the transit of information outside of the EU as well. But I feel like there needs to be more done, especially if the UK ends up leaving the EU, and considering that this also involves places like the United States. These are all things that need to be taken into account, and this company provided the evidence arises, which from the various footage that we've heard and seen from Cambridge Analytica's own admissions and explanations of their methods and things like that, I would imagine that there has to be something. My biggest worry is that these guys are also seemingly quite adept at hiding things and deleting things and getting rid of their tracks, and the fact that it's taking some time to get hold of a warrant and for the investigation to go ahead, you know, and as said, we've got the Information Commissioner quite openly saying that Cambridge Analytica is being uncooperative with her investigation. I feel like this company and the people working for them are very good at frustrating and kind of stalling and causing problems. And so it concerns me that they will not be caught in what they seem to be doing. But we'll have to see. As said, at the moment the investigation is only just starting, and there's a lot more that was said and a lot more that was done. I'm going to leave the links to the various Channel 4 bits and pieces that are all linked through YouTube as well. They're all uploaded to YouTube. So I'm going to link those down in the description for you guys to take a look at. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. As I've said, me as a profiler, I feel like this is not just bad on the data protection front and all that kind of thing, but this is bad on the fact that this is people using data, incredibly powerful thing, to generate profiles of people that at a glance you can tell how you need to attack someone to hit all their vulnerable points and get them to do what you want. That's the thing that bugs me. When it comes to democracy and when it comes to voting and buying products and anything else that requires us to have input, choice. I feel like those choices need to be made evenly, fairly, and in a vacuum as much as possible. But obviously that's hard to do with advertising and stuff anyway. But then again, those adverts also just raise awareness of the product. They're not really forcing us to buy anything. But then if you've got these methods being used where it's not just that they're raising awareness of a candidate, they're not just raising your awareness of a product, they're not just raising your awareness of a political party, they are specifically targeting you as an individual with your specific weaknesses in a way that allows you to perceive their candidate, their product, their party as being better, more secure, more stable, more solid. And if it adds up to you, because it will, because that's the way that they have broadcast it to you, you will be highly pushed towards making a specific choice rather than having a truly fair choice. This is where I've said be aware, make sure you do your research, make sure you read up on things, make sure you check your own working, check everyone else's working, check everything that comes into you, in front of you, and go over it thoroughly. Because otherwise, you know, that foundation that I talk about so often that you want made of solid rock, facts being rock, reality being rock, those get chipped away and removed and replaced with the finest of sand if companies like this are allowed to do this to us. So then the next question though that I would raise would be, well, if this is the situation and we are now seeing that essentially a method that was a step or a half step away from something like subliminal messaging, you know, actually imposing influence of one group onto another through indirect means, or direct means that appear indirect, I suppose, does that invalidate certain things? For instance, with the UK referendum, if it turns out that there was a very large part to play that Cambridge Analytica had control over and that they used, does that mean that adds support and weighs in behind the argument for a second referendum, or at least an agreement on the vote? Yeah, or an agreement vote rather on the final deal, you know, or are we just going to say, oh well, yes, we've potentially been abused by this company and the actions of the people who employed them, but we're just going to let it sit? And I feel like that again is also a hazardous thing to do, because if we have been taken advantage of, then we should have the right and the capacity to review what we did whilst under the influence of others. And especially considering these people have targeted individuals using a method that is good at getting into people's heads. You know, as I've said, with DISC, with Big Five, because they are very similar, they allow you a snapshot into a person's mind and how a person works. It can allow you to adapt your way of interacting with them for a huge benefit. And yet in this instance, it's allowed them to adapt in a way that just purely kind of forces an element of control over those people, removes an element of that individual's agency. And I feel that's wrong, you know. So I may very well make another video on this in the future after, you know, more comes out. But personally, especially after watching the videos, or the video that's available myself from the Channel 4 meetings, I'm inclined towards condemning Cambridge Analytica, and in particular the way that their CEO suggests the services that they can carry out on behalf of the individual posing as the client. And I feel like a lot has to be done about this, and this should wake an awful lot of people up to how tools that were developed to help people, that were developed to do very specific things. Are all it needs is the irresponsible individual to take hold of it and leverage it in a certain way, and potentially everybody loses an element of their freedom. Everybody loses an element of their control over their own lives. And I'm talking about in regards to big organized groups like this, but I'm also talking about individuals who are political ideologues who are using similar tactics in certain ways. The thing is, does it surprise me that Cambridge Analytica did this? No, not at all. Because regardless of which side they supported, they were going to be fine. Regardless of which side they got paid by, they were going to be fine. Because in any conflict, the arms dealers are the ones that always come out on top. But this is where we've had one of their research directors, I think he was, coming out and making his own statements, blowing the whistle on them, as it were, and it's troubling. But as said, I'll leave all the links down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments there, guys, about all of this in regards to the way that they conducted themselves, in regards to the Channel 4 reporting and the way that they cut the video up. Do you think that to me it doesn't seem like things were taken out of context. It seems like it's hard to take some of the things out of context that was said. I'll leave the other videos and articles and things, probably a couple from BBC as well. I'll leave them all down in the description. Please go and take a look, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, because quite frankly this is probably one of the more worrying and disturbing stories that has come out in the last couple of years, as far as I'm concerned, especially considering I can see how they did it. I can see what they did, and I can see how irresponsible and uncaring, kind of callous they had to be with people to do this, and yet how little they seem to care. I want to see all of the information, and I know I won't. I know none of us will be shown everything, but I want to see it, because I want to see how much they did, how far they went, who they impacted, and stuff like that, because it has huge implications for the UK, for the United States, for any other country that these people have interacted with. It's troubling, especially considering some of the services and some of the things that they were suggesting to the undercover journalist. So anyway, as said, all the links down below. Please have a look through them, and I'd love to hear your thoughts afterwards, guys. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the video later. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the video later. Take care.